Welcome back to Just 2 Minutes, Just to Mishnayos. This Mishnayos L'Nishmas Fredo LeBasrachan L'Schus V'Ali Yitzchak Ben Gila Nefraster Basiva. So Mesachas Bava Basra Perigyon Mishnah Gil Mishnah Dalad. Kaisin get Leisha Afal Pisha in Ishta Imai Vashover Leisha Afal Pisha in Bala Ima. So a man can have a get, a bill of divorce written for his wife, even if his wife isn't there at the time, and the way it would work is that after the divorce, when the man pays up the ksuba and gives the ksuba to his wife, so the wife gives him back a receipt, which is called the shovar. So the wife can have this shovar written up when the husband isn't there. And all of this on condition that the cipher, the scribe who's writing up the get or the receipt, he has to know who it's for, meaning he has to know that he's actually writing it for this woman and for her husband, not that he's writing it for some other woman with the same name. He has to know exactly who he's writing it for and who the couple are. And the husband has to pay for it because he's the one who's getting benefit from it because he's divorcing his wife. So someone who wants to borrow money from someone, so you can write the document, the contract of the loan, even though the lender isn't there, because maybe he's worried that he's not going to be able to write the contract anymore, so he wants to just have it down so he can go and get his loan. But you can't write one for the lender if the borrower isn't there, because we're worried that he's going to try and steal from this random guy who hasn't actually borrowed money from him. Unless the lender is also with him, and the borrower has to pay for it because he's the one who's getting the benefit. You can write the contract to for a seller, even though the buyer isn't there. But you can't write a contract for a buyer unless the seller's there, because we're worried he's just writing this over, even though he hasn't actually given over any money, and he's just going to get this thing. He's basically going to force the shop owner to give it over to him for free. In this case, the buyer has to lay out for it because he's the one who's getting benefit from it. Mishnah Dalad you can't write a shtar, you can't write the document, the contract of marriage for the kiddushin, which is kind of like the engagement, or the nisuin, which is the actual ksuba, unless the husband and wife are both there. And they don't necessarily have to be there, but they both have to give their consent and know about it. And the husband pays for it because it's considered as if he's buying his wife, basically. So there's two different things. There's arisus and kablanos, which we've discussed previously, where someone rents a field from someone on condition that he gives the owner, either by an aris, he gives a percentage of what he makes from the field, or he gives him a specific amount, which is a kablan. And in this case, you can only write the contract for this agreement if you have the consent of both people involved. And the person who's getting the field to work, so he has to pay because he's the one who's benefiting. So you can't write a document, a contract of a beirin, unless the both sides are there. Now, what's beirin? There's two options. Either we're talking about a case where two people are coming to Beis Din, they're coming to court, and we need to have three judges, so they each choose one judge, and then those two judges choose a third judge. So they have to write down like a contract saying that they each appoint one judge. So that's the first explanation. The second explanation is that they write down in Beis Din, they write down their taina, like they each write down their claim, and on a contract, basically on a document, and those documents are called the beirin. So according to these, scribe can't write this document unless, or any Beis Din or anything, when Beis Din come out with a ruling and it gets written down, both sides have to know about and have to give their consent. And both sides have to pay for it because they both get benefit. Sorry. Says that in the case where according to their explanation, basically, that he gives it, that what they write down is each one writes down his claim. So then Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says that each one can write down his own one. They don't have to and they don't have to have both their consents for each. They can each write their own one because they don't necessarily want the other person knowing their claim. Each one writes for his own one because he doesn't want the other person to know. And those are today's Mishnayos.